Da-da-da. I'm back on my desktop, so it's like I have the
You
chat
have
back there.
actual powers today.
I have actual powers. But, uh, we'll give it a few minutes.
Oh, that's true. You've been on laptop for a long time now.
Yeah, a couple weeks. And then it's gonna go back to that
For
starting
like
next week.
2 months.
Yeah, something like that.
Oh,
So,
okay.
might
Cool.
as well enjoy this
You're
while it
up.
lasts. We're fashionably late, so we'll see if anybody waited, or if it's just gonna be us talking about things.
It'll be like the old days.
Yeah, like the old days when
Ranting with
we just
two or three people.
talks amongst ourselves,
Yep.
me and you.
Well, that's all right.
But then Tanya's out
Good time to
gallivanting in
catch up too.
flowers, which is fun. So you have
Okay.
the slide deck up, right?
I got slide deck up, yep, and I've got other random pieces, so I can just share stuff on my side. I don't have a problem with that.
All right. We'll just let it
Until
sit.
we get to at least the SMC and like the slideshow part, you can go
Yeah,
into that one.
because
Hi,
that'll be.
Ray.
There he is. Hi, Ray. He was with me at Saint Helena.
That's funny.
And then hi, Carl. So we got a couple people. I just like it. YouTube always has that little bit of delay, so we like
What
to
are these
sit here and chit chat.
badges I'm seeing on the people
I
now?
don't know. He's a king number
Top
one.
fans?
Like,
Glad
I
they're giving, us top fans.
I guess social media does it, so I guess YouTube's got to do it now. So
Make it a competition. Hi,
yeah.
Steve.
As you can see, it's just the two of us today. Well, Tanya's out gallivanting in flowers in Crested Butte.
Yeah, she's the lucky one here.
Yeah, so we get to handle it. But she's been liking this so much, you know. She's been taking over a lot of it lately, which is fine. We
It
don't
makes us way
mind.
more organized than we
It
normally would be.
does. She borderlines makes this not unplugged by giving us organization
Structure.
structure, which I'm not used to having. Whenever he says he's only number three. Well, it just switched to number one now.
Yeah, it's
I
showing number
don't
one on my side.
I don't know what that is.
It went from 2 to 1. As people, I don't know actually, because then you go to the list and the list doesn't make sense.
Yeah, whatever. It's YouTube. Anyway,
Okay.
shall we get started since we have people
Shall we?
watching?
Yes.
So, welcome aboard. So this weekend it's a little more informal. We decided to tackle the current events that have been going on because it's been interesting. We had a corona hole influence and a CME, actually two CMEs that was embedded in that. Um, there's a lot of debate going on in the Twitter world about what that actually was. Like people were waiting longer for the CMEs, and then and it had to explain that this was embedded in it, but they weren't very fast. They were pretty slow, so it was almost like they just hitched a ride on the solar wind as they came in. That's why there really wasn't much of a shock or anything like that. But then what transpired was not the best of situations for aurora chasing. It was just a lot of steady magnetospheric convection and 5-minute substorms and kind of just days of disappointment, really. But so we'll kind of get into that.
Days of Disappointment. That's a pretty accurate title for the week,
Oh,
I'd say.
and then before I go on to, if anybody's been using the AE index to look at stuff, I don't know if you notice this, but there's a problem with it right now. I don't know what it is, but it's reading incorrectly, and it's been reading incorrectly for days. This just isn't right. So just
Yeah, so these giant drops and increases, and it had been starting to happen. I noticed. I looked back even as far as the
yeah,
second.
because
It had many tiny peaks that were randomly starting to spike,
and
and then
then
they
it's
grew in
just like
frequency.
it's just enhanced, like it's enhanced way more than it should be.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's those little peaks like became more sustained, and then it just grew into this self giant mass
yeah.
that didn't change, and
So
so none of
that's
this is accurate.
yeah. So that's just we wanted to preface that right away because this was one of those things that was kind of confusing on the third. I think it was the second or third because it's like wow, look at it. It's like minus 500 nanotesla. It should be seeing something. It was like nothing, absolutely nothing.
So one of the stations is just going wonky. It's reading bad
Yeah.
data, in which case it's throwing it into the averages.
So
Fun. Hi, Les.
yeah.
Good
So
morning.
therefore, good morning. So anyway, that's a little warning about the AE index right now. So let's just get into what happened.
So sun-wise, and I'm still catching up myself, so we're going to use this unplugged time to actually re-educate myself on the events of the last week. But over the last week, roughly, of 211 channel, you can pretty clearly see the eruption from the center disk. And actually,
Mm-hmm.
there were a couple more along with it, too. So one down here, which was pretty clear. That one
Yep.
there, I want to say there was like, oh, then there's the center disk one
There's
there,
one there.
at least two or three other ones.
All little.
All minor for the most part, from the looks of it. But there were quite a few dimming areas. My favorite, and I noticed this and I forgot to say anything, there were two simultaneous prominence eruptions on opposite sides of the sun. So west, and literally just the limbs. So we got to see, yeah, right there. So that one on the west limb, that one on the east limb, take off at the exact same time.
That's pretty cool.
Obviously far away from us, but
But neat to see, regardless.
yeah. There's a giant prominence right now that wraps around quite a bit of the sun. That could be fun to watch. It's probably going to shoot north anyway, because why wouldn't it? So even if it launches, I wouldn't expect to get much.
You can bring up
But
that
yeah, going
magnetic
back,
field map and see.
that's true. Actually, we could. Ooh, I like that idea. Pull up. Yeah, just keep it current and see what the PFSS model says. Just to get some ideas. They're all closed,
Yeah.
so it's not like they'd be shooting out in any specific direction.
Hmm.
So if it gets enough, theoretically.
So it could be something to watch.
And then I love how there's just nothing but streamers on either side.
Yeah.
Okay,
Anyway,
so
sorry.
going back to, yes, so the eruption, the little C-class flare CME that we were waiting on. There was also the giant southern kernel hole. So during that time, it had some competition with, even though it was a little bit south of us, it still would have influenced the CME. And then if we're looking in actual solar wind data, which I guess we can just use the slide deck for that. I keep forgetting I already put that up.
Yeah. Make it big. Make it big. There you
Boop.
go.
There we go, except I'm not going to move all my bars away.
And then
So there's some minor enhancements up here after the third. This looks like a partial flux rope. We were not quite sure, but it looked very much like a west-northeast configuration. If it was a flux rope, it was very squished together or very side blow. There was a very large BX component, so it was at a very large angle to the Earth. And that is also why I assumed it looked kind of messy. And then all of a sudden went to a different configuration that we have here, which looks more like a, well, what was decided at this point? I mean, I see a pretty constant western field, so northwest south would be what I'd be looking at here, but honestly, it's hard to tell where that would have stopped.
yeah, because
But it was definitely a more central hit.
just kind of disappeared back into the solar
Yeah,
wind.
it's not very smooth either, so it's kind of a hard call there. Not really many bumps in the solar wind either. There was some increases earlier the last few days where the magnetic field got pretty chaotic, but that's just then the influence of this central kernel hole that we have. Granted, it was pretty small, at least when it faced center disk, and now it is just about to where we should be seeing it. So some expected activity from that solar wind stream.
I'm kind of wondering if maybe that's what that sudden enhancement was last night or this morning.
Yeah, it would make sense that it's some sort of CIR or SAR movement. I think this one would be more CIR technically, not that it matters since
Yeah.
it's whichever one was detected
Like how
first.
we're problem solving in real time.
Yeah, exactly. But that's why we're unplugged. Let's make sure too, if anyone, oh, hi Janelle.
Yeah.
Anyone has any questions or any specific things they want answered, feel free to interrupt in the chat because currently we're just again going over data freshly. EPAM too had a little bit of a bump, and this is, I think, adding to the picture of we saw a glancing CME and then the little central one, but it pretty much got muffled into nothing. So instead of a big giant peak and then a drop off, we just saw like rounded, literally a rounded grow and then a shrink from
Yeah,
there.
because this isn't typical what usually CMEs look like in EPAM.
No, and same with CARs.
Yeah.
It's not like we'd expect that very much from protons to rise from solar wind streams coming in that are high speed. This I do like this section
Yeah.
though.
Speaking of kernel holes.
Mm-hmm. Kernel holes and the same kernel hole at that, different rotations, and the actual pattern they had in the AE index as to how much activity. Clearly, it was a little more, we'll say, bigger jumps of activity on the first two rounds around. The last time did not seem to have quite as many giant peaks, even though it looked thicker. So it goes to show you, looks really don't have much to do with what kind of activity you see. I think we were going to go in extended forecast, but I don't think we need to do that at the moment.
Oh
So
yeah,
basically, for
yeah,
now, it's just the current whole stream, not maybe a few minor transients or elevations in the magnetic field strength from just random eruptions, because it does look like there's at least a couple more in here after the last few days, like just right there in the southern hemisphere. Although whether or not we'd get anything of that is another question. But the point is, there could be some more.
yeah. I'll just say it instead of typing it, because like Margaret says, she has to watch it later because she missed the beginning, which is funny because like now we've been giving it like 5 minutes
I know. I was
to
gonna say we
load.
got up mostly like I think 7:10 or 7:11 we officially started, or at least started saying things.
Yeah, about 10 past the start. So I guess that's what we're gonna have to do. We're just gonna have to chit chat for like 10 minutes.
That's okay.
So no taking.
Because then yeah, it just cuts to the live and then we're talking already. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sorry guys.
But anyway, long story short is we had a couple of very minor CME eruptions that did hit us, but it was embedded in the coronal hole stream, so it's just kind of weird. Um, and when you look back or rewatch it, you'll see in the solar wind data because we marked where the CMEs more than likely were. That's it in a nutshell.
So some minor
There.
elevated activity,
So
but really nothing else expected outside of that. Kernel hole should start kicking in, so solar wind speed will probably jump to 500 or more over the next day or two. Actually, let's look at it live since I've only looked at it in a 7-day forecast. I haven't actually
yeah,
looked at just the current time.
bring it up, bring it up, bring it up. Da-da-da.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
slowly increasing. Went from about 400 to 450 just over the last 6 hours. Uh, BT has increased up to about 11 to 12. We got a constant negative field, so we're likely going to start seeing some probably G1 alerts here soon, would be my guess once the substorm would break. This has been what, an hour, almost an hour and a half, constant BZ, which if it is then the kernel hole, that's going to change probably pretty soon as the speeds start increasing and the density starts dropping.
perfect. Now we know. Now we know. And then I answered, like when Janelle was on, I answered my own question about what the sudden enhancement was, the overnight.
Yeah, pretty much. Which then leaves it with convection stuff,
Oh yeah, yeah,
which if
convection.
you want to take the photos and such from
Yeah,
there.
so I'm gonna bring up because this was the other thing that was interesting about what happened is we had a very like long stints of my negative BZ, but unfortunately that usually throws it into a steady magnetospheric convection state, which is what it did. And let me bring up.
Oh, I can do the stack plots while you're looking if you want.
Yeah,
I forgot I had those up still.
I'm gonna bring up uh, uh some Michigan Aurora chasers.
Oh,
Just
okay.
because this has a good example of what was seen, specifically this one that Jen got, because most people are like, oh, like there was actually some really good confusion on this because infighting on the internet because some people thought that this wasn't real because it I kid you not, it lasted maybe 10 minutes, maybe. It was very brief.
Nice raise.
They were really nice. You could see it, like barely. I
What time
mean,
was that?
12:38 a.m. That's Eastern time, Eastern
Okay.
Standard. Yeah, and
So,
I remember seeing this, and that's why I was like when I was telling Janelle and some other, I'm like, no, it happened, but the problem was it was so brief, and I think in the time lapse that I was doing, I had 3 frames of it before it went back into the convection state where it's just the green arc. So for those that missed it, it's because it was very quick. And that's typically what you get when you have these convection patterns like this. You'll get these very brief, actually there was a Steve that night too. But you get these very brief substorms and then it goes back into the arc, the diffuse featureless arc that we all know and love so much. So yeah, she got some really nice images of that substorm. And this happened 2 nights in a row. There was like a good outburst and then it went back to nothing. So that's the problem with the steady magnetospheric convection. It's like you have to wait for this, and it was about 5 hours it took, and then it broke. because we really didn't have any external triggers on it. It was kind of one of those things where you're just looking for the tipping bucket to tip and then let it go. Because the other things that could that could trigger it is if you have the like a switch to North BZ or something like that, which we just didn't have it. It was all like just steady negative BZ, which yeah, it's we like our negative BZ, but we don't like it when it goes like that.
Get some variety.
And then the other thing I wanted to hit on was so when you're out there and you know how we rotate under the oval. So when you're in a steady magnospheric convection type mode, sometimes it may look like the oval's getting bigger, but what's happening is we're moving under it. So as we're getting like closer to what your magnetic midnight is, where you're under it, it'll look at the biggest at that point before it starts rotating out. So there was a little bit of confusion on that because, sometimes when you think it's getting bigger, it's going to go into a substorm. But this wasn't necessarily the case. So that's one of the other things I wanted to point out about the convection. Oh, okay. So that was like 3 days of frustration because it just, like all the data is like, hey, we got something going on. We got the, but then it just like, look at that.
Yeah. So this flat. Was mostly starting here. We had -3, -6, and then it really stayed negative. But here,
yeah, it's
on
like
the third, 2:35.
Days.
So you said midnight, 12:30 or so for those pictures. So that would have been a 4:30 UTC roughly.
Yeah.
Which corresponds to this drop.
Yep. And that's when it broke.
So there's our, well, I guess minus the gaps, the SMC and then plenty of SMC it looks like after that.
Do I have that? Let me look if I have. I think Tanya sent the let me see if I can send it to myself because she had the GOES plot that really shows the convection.
Oh, GOES mag?
Yeah, it's like gross. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, there it is. Okay. Now the question is, can I bring this up? Let's see. Okay, hang on. You guys are gonna see my. Let me get it off of here for a second. Okay.
Worst case, I have it as well.
Do you have the GOES plot?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, put it up. That'd be easier.
And then it was the third, so we'll go this period. Something like that.
Yeah. See how it just kind of like, it drops, but it just kind of like does... it
barely.
It just does this like slide down.
And then here's where the breakout happened.
Yeah, and then you get like, yeah, and that's where that small little substorm happened. And then it just kind of
right back to it.
Right back to it. You don't get the big drops. If you go back, zoom back out, see if you can find an example of the typical drop that you get. Like something like right no. That looks like the same thing.
Yeah, kind of.
Maybe. Well, then again,
7 days.
We've had days of like magnospheric convection, so.
Yeah, it's hard to find a very sharp one. I mean, really, that's the best I can see, and that's only that.
Yeah, but I think people have seen this before because we've seen it where you've had the big drop, and then it goes up pretty heavy. But like this, when it does
like this
kind
drop
of stuff,
here, but it didn't go up.
It's just basically energy in, energy out. It's just equal, and you just get stuck in this convection pattern that doesn't do anything exciting. So
is
that's
it detecting the drop the important feature? Asks Les.
Yes, yeah, detecting the drop. That is correct. And then it's really the bounce back on GOES when it's kind on the ground mags. It's the it's opposite, right?
Yeah, you have the ground mags. It's as it's increasing, that's the growing, and then as it starts dropping, is the expansion.
Yep. And then on GOES, you wait for that bounce back. So it goes down, and then as soon as it starts bouncing back up, that's what you're looking for. So it's a little different from the ground mags.
Which is confusing.
Yeah, it is. In fact, look I still confuse myself.
Oh, you know what? This looks like I just realized.
What's that?
Oh, I was still heavily zoomed out. Never mind. It looked like there was a more recent disturbance, but I was still sitting on the 7 days.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the last week or so in the world of space weather. um.
Tanya wanted to mention when she was here, at least Glendale now has the current hole
Oh yes,
forecast
yeah. Put the
with it.
You can make that one
So
bigger
it's got a
too.
way to look at the same hole and kind of what activity to expect over the different durations. So you don't have to look up an SDO yourself. It just picks out points on it.
Here, make it big again so you can see it.
Oh, good
There you
point.
go. So yeah, this is pretty neat. You can actually click on the days up top in the app, and you can look at what that coronal hole looked like a month prior to now. It's easier than going through all of the data online and farming for it for yourself. It's there, so you can actually compare the size, shape, and location. And as you see, they change every from month to month, but they've been persistent, which is fun because that's like the one thing that's kind of predictable. In fact, we could talk about
Which is
the
the perfect lead in.
lead into the extended forecast because this caused a little confusion too. Um, with the coronal hole last month had a embedded CME in it, a pretty decent embedded CME in it, so it skewed the extended forecast. And Andy went in Glendale and corrected that because people were looking or possibly expecting these bigger storms out of it. But it wasn't just the corona hole, it was a corona hole plus a pretty decent CME hit. So that's the one thing you got to keep in mind is these are based off of last month's activity. And you have to be aware that sometimes we have additional things like a CME that will enhance the corona hole.
I mean, really, it's hard to even rely on the longer forecasts, even during now, since we have kernel holes regularly. Those kernel holes change so frequently and have activity with them. It's very difficult to determine any sort of consistent pattern in them as to whether or not the next rotation will have something or similar to what you had before.
Yeah,
It could be worse,
and then we can bring in the whole Russell McFerrin debate too, which I know.
which we're pretty much null on right now.
Yeah, because we're at the solstice and we're going to be pretty much there till August ish. And you can argue that you could see it with this last coronal hole because the last two rotations gave us pretty, well, minus the CME embedded one, pretty decent activity, and then all of a sudden it didn't. So, and what is the Russell McFerrin effect in it? In essence, it's the angle, the vector. So how our planet is tilted in the solar wind. So it
So
has
now a radial field during
yeah.
the solstices are basically perpendicular to the axis of the magnetic field, which means there's no component towards the BZ.
Yeah, so it
Whereas
just
when it's, sometime other words, if it's leaning this way, you've got a pretty large component going negative or positive in this case.
so that's in a nutshell what it is and why it
Geometry.
matters. And at the solstices we don't have it, so now we're back to relying on other stuff to give us things that we'll look for.
Yep. It's been so boring when it comes to low magnitude or low geomagnetic forecasting stuff that I really haven't been paying attention for like a month now.
Bad.
Like it's summer, I have like 4 hours of real night, and there's no real activity to look for anyway.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Unlike our southern hemisphere friends, so when I was running the workshop last week, we have like 2.5 hours of nighttime. Which that's it.
Astro ends, and you got like 2 hours until it starts again.
It's like wow. So even if something does happen, you have to wait like 12 hours for it to get dark. So summertime, even though it's comfortable outside right now, it has its whole list of problems when you're an astrophotographer.
Yeah.
But the one good thing is we didn't really have too much wildfire smoke to contend with this round. There was some, but it wasn't as thick as it was last month. So that's good. That means at least the fires I think they're getting more and more under control. But I haven't really kept too much tabs on what's going on up there. But I haven't heard
I
anything
know Alaska's
either.
getting kind of bad right now, at
Yeah.
least the Fairbanks area.
Yeah, that's true. They had some lightning strikes up there, so that's fun. But the good news is,
Hey, summer.
but so far our friends out west haven't had anything happen yet. So I'm gonna cross fingers on that
Same.
because it's July. We'll see what happens. So anyway, does anybody have any questions? Did we cover everything in the slideshow? Kinda.
Everything except. I'll be honest, I didn't look at this part yet either, but the extended forecast
Which we
kernel
just
hole
did.
geo-affected this slide. Recurve association, plot outliers, CME effect.
Fun.
Yeah, which I'm not sure how to stick into there.
Well, hopefully, if anything, it helped clear up some of the commentary that's been online the last couple days.
Hopefully.
Yeah, there was a raw activity, but it was a test of patience, and if you wanted to be out all night, which some people were, and they caught the 5 minute five storm. I keep calling 5 minute substorms. They might have lasted a little longer than that,
Honestly,
but
that sounds like a pretty clicky
yeah,
name for it, though. That could be a good one.
5 minute substorms. Were you up for it?
Steve, good question. In fact, I know we've had some really good Noctilucent Cloud
Oh
showings the last, I
yeah,
want to say three or
yep,
four nights. I think July 1st and 2nd, it was bright enough that like even Minnesota was getting it pretty nicely.
yeah.
And it
So
was like all in the sky in Alberta. It was pretty cool.
we didn't see anything in the Upper Peninsula, but that's because there was a lot of obstruction on the horizon. So there could have been some, but I never. Like, I was up at Chris Point, which gives you such a great view over the I can't think today, Lake Superior, but we had clouds basically the whole time. So the whole night it was just the whole horizon line was obscured, so I didn't see
Of
anything.
course.
But yeah, I get yeah, like you said, I think Minnesota saw some anywhere else where it was clear, but yeah, they've been pretty good. Yeah. All we've had in rain in South Dakota, yeah, it's just been it seems like some areas just keep
Gross.
getting all the rain, and others are
I've
getting
had
none of
nothing
it.
but sun and heat.
Yeah, exactly. You're in the sun and heat, and
Horrible.
then the rain's everywhere else.
Hate summer.
Yeah, that's true. And then where we were in the straits, there's light pollution, because
Give me some of that low air pressure, please.
yeah, yeah. The Mackinac Bridge actually puts off a significant amount of light pollution. It doesn't seem like it, but when you're there, it does.
I'm not surprised. I was
That
surprised myself that I couldn't get any stars in the same exposure as the actual
Yeah,
bridge.
they switched it all over to LEDs a while ago, and it just kind of made it really really bright. So you can still see the Milky Way and stuff, but it's just not as dark as it could be. So that's the
Shame.
yeah, modern day problems. I think that's yeah. All right, yeah. Not till it's a cloud season, so we can definitely look for those. And Glendale actually has that in there now too. So
Which good. That's a
it shows you it estimates where you might be able to see them and when. And I wish I could test that, but haven't had a chance to.
yeah. It's kind of hard from our latitude. I
Yeah,
know Aurora UK basically shuts down and becomes a place for reporting NLCs since it's too bright up there for most of the aurora.
yeah. That's what they do when you can't see aurora anymore. Yeah, yeah. Like Patrick said too, that light pollution is pretty wild. How much it'll bounce off of clouds, and
I mean, it just illuminates
mhm.
the hell out of them.
Yeah, it's like they're like, what is that? And it's just like this tiny town, but all of a sudden the light pollution's like,
It really becomes a bubble.
yeah. So that's But anyway, got anything else to add? We
I'm
let these
good.
people go. I think we went on for about a half hour or so, even though we started kind of late.
I was gonna say now it counts as a half hour
Yeah, now it counts.
with the late start time.
It was pretty easy, quick to go over. Um,
We need something actually to. I mean, topics are nice to even to go over, but I want some actual analysis again. It's been
yeah,
so long.
this one's kind of hard because it's so much. Well, I think when was the one we did where we had because the other one
Liz was on it, I believe. That one.
yeah, well, the one where we had the chart about the CMEs and associated flares, because it was kind of interesting to see how many CMEs
Oh yeah,
come from C
per
class and
flare.
B class flares.
It was the week before Scott, I believe.
Yeah, because there's actually quite a few. And now, granted, they're like we get what we saw. They don't do much, but it's something. But
It counts technically.
it's not just the bigger flares that can produce CMEs. These littler ones can, and sometimes they're placed just right. So you always got to keep an eye out. And we did see both of these CMEs were in the Donkey database, so they were modeled and both of them hit. So there's that.
Just not very interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that's. I don't think anybody else has any questions. So, uh, maybe we'll have something
I'm good if
interesting.
you were.
Yeah, if we have anything good, interesting to talk about next week, we will. Well, might have to come up with a topic. Maybe. So if you guys have any suggestions on topics, definitely hit us up. Like if you want us to go over anything again, like EPAM or something
Yeah,
like
even
that.
repeats. Yep.
Because the more you go over it, the more you can commit it to memory. I just like to keep itinerary or driving home the fact that having these tools at your disposal to use is great, but don't count on them to be like verbatim or Bible or something, because EPAM especially can be very confusing, because it picks up everything. Even the Earth will fling protons back at it, and it'll pick it up. So you're basically looking for trends when it comes to things like that. Like that plot we had up was I think it was a 7-day plot or 3-day plot. And so don't look at like the 6-hour window or the 12-hour window, because you won't see a trend in that. Look like 3 days out and look for the rise. Because that's kind of how you read the EPAM plot, is you look for the trends. You don't look at the little spikes here and there, because that could be just about anything. And then sometimes
and it happens a lot
it'll
too.
see a CME pass that still doesn't hit us, because it'll pick up things that are near. So that's just another
Oh,
little warning about it.
Patrick said that they had a Steve.
Yeah, there was it was I didn't see it because I was sidetracked by something else, but yeah, it was around 3 in the morning, I think, somewhere around
Damn.
that. There was a Steve. A couple people caught it. So that's nice. It's back.
Nice. Good catch.
I still have this weird association, which I don't know if it's. I have no. I mean, I didn't do the research.
The coronal hole one.
Coronal holes. It seems like when you start getting coronal holes, you get Steve's back.
It just
So
might
there.
take high energy coming in, or at least faster speeds from that. Whatever it does to the magnetosphere. I mean, it's a good theory.
Yeah.
It does seem to have at least some observational evidence behind it.
So I don't know. That's my thoughts, but yeah. Yeah, it's true, Les. The drop, rise, and goes correlates well to action. It even in the south, that's actually pretty cool, because since the goes mags are primarily geosynchronous to us, it's kind of nice to hear that it can be somewhat of use for you guys over there too. So maybe it's just on a little bit of a delay. Yeah, a big drop. So like all the stuff that we saw the last couple days was it's just
Yeah, those were not big.
like that gradual drop down. It never really snaps back. Yeah, I love studying magnetospheric convection. It's so much
It's my
fun.
favorite.
It's my favorite state. Alrighty, we'll talk about Steve. Yeah, actually that could be kind of cool, just to do a thing on Steve. I don't know if we did a specific.
No, I don't think we've done a deep specific one. We've done a suborbital one, I believe.
Yeah, so we could do it, because there's a lot on Steve now. There's a lot of citizen science that's been done on it, and what it is, and things like that. So, and then Patch, somebody said might have caught a SAR. Yeah, like where it was clear, because I know it was kind of cloudy last night in a lot of places. Yeah. So that's fun. All right, cool. Well, we have an idea, but anyway,
We'll run with it.
we'll let you guys have your evening back. Thanks for tuning in, as always. Hopefully you got something out of that. It's fun, kind of retrospective reanalyzing these things. Because like I said, like if you can learn to pick up these magnetospheric convective states, then you can kind of sort of, know what to expect. Like let's say if you want to go to bed that night, because you're not going to miss much, you'll miss the 5-minute substorm.
So you can be okay with that, or you can
be
stay
okay
up
with
and
that.
witness it.
I just happened to be up there, so I was like, well, I guess I'm gonna watch. So Oh yeah, I will say, since I'm on TV right now, it was fun. I don't think I told you this, but we were playing laser tag with Patrick. Because Saint Helena Island, which is, hold on, maybe I'll just get a map up. I'll show you real quick. This will be the last thing, I promise, and I'll let you guys go. Because it was fun. but you got to get a
Did you have
visual.
green lasers that you were firing back and
Yes, you
forth
got
in the
green
sky?
lasers, and
That's awesome.
because he can see the island from where he's at, and okay, so I'll bring this over here. All right, so here you go. So we were on this little island right here, and Patrick's over here.
So of course you can see the
So we were
lasers.
shining the laser across to each other.
Okay, that's really funny.
And you can see
Especially that you knew it was each other. That was the funnier part.
you can see it really well. So yeah, when they say don't shine the laser at airplanes,
That's why, because they can see it.
Because it's like 7 miles across that gap right there. So anyway, that's that. Well, we can end it on that.
Impressive.
And yeah, you're welcome, everybody. So yeah, races is better than TV. on
Yes,
TV.
it is.
All right, we'll come up with a topic for next week, and if not, we'll just analyze something else because that's what we like to do. Because it keeps us.
We'll find it.
It keeps us up to date on things too.
Literally, there's no way I would have been up to date with this had I not had this stream today.
It helps just
that was nice.
keeping up on it. So anyway, yeah, this blew my mind. Yeah, it was like the laser could point that far. Alrighty.
That's funny.
You guys have a wonderful evening now, and we'll see you next week. All right.
See you later, everybody.
Adios. Now I just gotta figure out how to stop.